Hello, everybody. My name is Jocelyn Palacios, and my topic is on plastics. When I think about plastics, I think about the movie Finding Nemo as well as ocean pollution. Plastics, also known as polymers, is a substance that is made up of similar compounds bonded together, and it's mainly bonded together with carbon atoms as well as hydrogen, nitrogen, chlorine, and sulfur. It can either be first, second, or third dimensional, and here's an example of what it would look like. Even though it's mainly composed of hydrogen, nitrogen, chlorine, and sulfur, other atoms can also be attached to it. I'm going to talk to you guys about the classification of polymers. The first type is a natural polymer, which is not genetically synthesized by humans, meaning that it either comes from nature, such as in plants or animals. Deoxyribonucleic acid, as well as ribonucleic acid, is an example of a natural polymers found within nature. Another example are proteins, which is found in animals and plants, as well as cellulose and starch, which is found in plants. Synthetic polymer is a polymer that is artificially created and synthesized by humans, meaning that this is where we change it and it doesn't come from nature. It's made because it's something that we need. Take, for example, shampoo bottles, water bottles, and plastic bags. It has the capacity to artificially create and synthesize. Now, the most commonly used type of plastic is polyethylene, which is, as I previously mentioned, in used for water bottles, plastics, and shampoo. Another type is a semi-synthetic polymer, which is obtained through the modification of natural polymers. Now, this is done in the lab, which is where it goes through a chemical process and is formed by a chemical reaction, meaning that it also has to be in a controlled environment. A controlled environment is a place where like people where scientists do an experiment and it has to be like at a certain room temperature, certain lighting, and stuff that we can control. An example of this is the film used in back then, like for to take pictures and stuff like that. Another example is cellulose nitrate, which is then chemically altered to cellulose triactate. Polymer has various characteristics. The first one being that it's resistant to chemicals. Polymers can be made to be resistant to certain chemicals, and it also has to, in order for it to be resistant to certain chemicals, it has to do with the molecular structure, concentration, time, and other temperature in order for it to be successful, as well as chemicals and additives, which all come into place to make the plastic resistant. An example of this is like with Windex bottles and like other stuff that use chemicals that can possibly be dangerous to us, which is why in the back of like our label of in the back of our products it tells us to store it at certain room temperatures so that it can have the capability to be resistant to it. Another example is Another characteristic is that it can be good thermal slash electric insulators. Polymers are also good thermal insulators as well as it provides us with thermal activity effects. So when there's high thermal activity, it can increase the heating as well as the cooling rate. And it can also have the capability to have low thermal activity, which limits heating and cooling rates. Without plastic, for example, when we cook stuff into our, like with our Tupperware, it would possibly like if it wasn't if it wasn't made good, like it could melt and stuff like that, but it doesn't because of the way that it's made because it's a good insulator. It is also light in weight and degrees of strength. Based on what type of plastic it is, it can have the ability to float as well as to sink, and also unlike stuff such as aluminum, steel, and stone, which sinks. Plastic doesn't do that. It can flow and it doesn't have to be necessarily heavy. So you basically get the best of both worlds. It is also able to be processed. Take, for example, plastic toys and styrofoam cups. It has the ability to be chemically synthesized for various usages and be molded different ways and also used in different ways. Now, plastic is also bad for us. According to the Scientific American, ingested microplastic particles can physically damage organs and leach hazardous chemicals from BPA. BPA is harmful for animals as well as our ocean's ecosystems. Even though plastic is something that we use on a day-to-day life, we don't realize the damage that we cause when we throw away a plastic water bottle into the drainage and stuff like that. Whenever we throw that, it goes into the ocean, and then animals such as fish consume it, and when we eat stuff such as sushi, we also consume it. We also consume microplastics. Now, plastic is non-biodegradable, meaning that it can take years for it to degrade, which is why we have plastic pollution in our ocean's ecosystems. And the chemicals also used to make plastic is also toxic for marine life. And on the bottom, I provided you guys an image of what plastic looks like in our oceans. There was an experiment done in 2008 by Brown, which demonstrated how microplastic does not go safely through our bodies. He did an experiment using mussels, and he put microplastic particles like into the tank and stuff, and he then placed them to a clean tank that didn't have microplastic, and he did this within the span of 6 weeks. After the 6 weeks, he actually ran out of muscle, which means that the mussels died. So if this does that to wildlife, imagine what it does to us. It also Researchers also discovered that it can lead to health effects such as liver damage, and fish fish which were exposed to microplastics also were shown to reproduce less. So in today's news, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to talk to you guys about how nowadays we are actually getting more technologically advanced in the fashion industry, which is something like weird to think that plastic is used in fashion and stuff like that. So there's clothing companies such as Adidas, which partnered up with Parsley to prevent plastics from entering our oceans. So in doing so, they are now going to use plastic for sportswear, meaning that the clothes that we wear or like shoes and stuff is going to be made up of recycled plastic, which is good because it reduces plastic in our ocean's ecosystem. So if you click the link, you will see that if you scroll down, that they have this thing that says avoid, which says no plastic bags, no microbeads, and next up, no more virgin plastic in our chain. And also intercept. Our aim is to stop plastic before it enters the ocean and so forth, and as well as redesign. Now, this is basically their pledge to make a difference and not use plastics. And this is important because, like I said, plastics are non-biodegradable, which means that it's going to stay in our Earth ecosystem for a long time, and it will cause a lot of damage as it is right now. So what we can do nowadays, we can do simple stuff such as not buying single-use plastics. Single-use plastics are things such as plastic bags that we buy in the groceries stores, and as well as water bottles and like other stuff that we know